Okay, Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, I'm looking at some of the domestic context here, the backdrop of which all of this conflict overseas is playing out. And it's obviously become an obvious truism. The pandemic revealed the incredibly divided realities for different sets of workers here at home. White-collar professional managerial class types were sent home to work safe in their comfortable abodes. Billionaires boarded their yachts or fled to their private islands, while the working class was either fired and financially screwed or deemed essential, given a little pat on the head, and forced to get it back out there for the same low wages, only now with the added benefit of risking their lives in order to keep society rolling and serve the whims of the affluent. But the pandemic also put every existing divide already here in our society on an accelerator. This can be seen most clearly, of course, among our billionaire class. The ranks of the billionaire class expanded greatly during the pandemic, minting 500 new members worldwide thanks to disaster capitalism. Overall billionaire wealth surged 70%, adding $2.1 trillion in wealth just here in the US. And that added wealth alone is enough to cover 60% of Build Back Better for the entire decade. But with the pandemic receding, we're getting an idea of the way these new gulfs in wealth, dignity, and lifestyle could be solidified and even expanded. Friend of the show, Derek Thompson, is out with a fascinating look at the data behind the move to making remote work and hybrid work permanent. Derek writes that stadiums are packed, travel is back, restaurant reservations are surging, but office occupancy is moribund. Even movie theaters, a business sometimes written off as, quote, doomed, have recovered almost twice as much as offices. Other articles have painted a similar portrait, writing about the way that shifts in work patterns have decimated downtown small businesses reliant on office workers as customers. Now look, I am fully supportive of this shift to remote and hybrid work. I think it's great that the pandemic allowed white-collar workers to have more time with their families, rebalance their lives, reclaim more leisure time and an identity away from the office. But we should not miss that these same gains have not been realized for the broad working class. After all, the real divide in this country is between those people who are treated as full human beings and those who are treated as cogs to be plugged into the capitalist machinery and discarded when they become inconvenient or dare to demand some dignity. And so when the full humanity of the professional class is more fully realized, it only makes the inhumane treatment of the working class more glaring and ultimately more intolerable. Derek predicts another impact of remote work, which will be a wonderful lifestyle improvement for the class that benefits from it: the end of the 5-day work week. Already many professionals with the cash and the flexibility to do it treat regular weekends like their holidays, planning getaways and fulfilling their work responsibilities from Airbnbs in lovely locales. And while Derek argues this 4-day work week might trickle down to other classes of workers, personally, I sincerely doubt it. After all, one glaring difference between office workers and even lower paid college-educated professionals is that the latter have to actually be in a physical place. You can do your BS consulting job or your legal work from basically anywhere. Nurses, though, have to actually be in the hospital. Teachers have to actually be at the school. And of course, servers, Uber drivers, and warehouse workers have to actually be in their designated spots to cater to this affluent professional class. Custodians still have to be at the office buildings they're tasked with cleaning, even if the cubicles they're vacuuming are now vacant. And their bosses, they don't care whatsoever about what these workers' personal preferences are. But it's not just the indignity of watching new horizons open up for the affluent while you're remaining stuck. It's not even just the continued cultural division of the country as one class avails itself of new travel and leisure opportunities while the rest keep going to the same jobs in the same way, only with a little more precarity and a little more surveillance and a little less dignity day by day by day. That's to say nothing of the paychecks, which are further and further stretched by wages that don't keep up with inflation. We're only going to see more of that. Because another lifestyle change open to PMC remote workers is putting pressure on a lot of working class people directly. Once they are more or less untethered from the office, the PMC can move wherever they want, bringing the high housing prices of the cities they fled along with them. This is already happening, causing pain and friction and despair, sort of nationwide gentrification that is forcing people to abandon the dream of home ownership or flee their hometowns altogether. Such is the case in Spokane, Washington. The once sleepy town had dreamed of being a destination for new residents with a lot of disposable income. Now, many longtime residents are putting "Don't move here" bumper stickers onto their cars. In the past 2 years alone, housing prices in Spokane have jumped 60%. According to the Times, the median income there was sufficient to afford 2/3 of the houses on the market just a few years ago. Now, the mayor of the town's own adult son and new wife are stuck living in mom's basement, unsure if they can afford to live in their hometown. In fact, housing prices nationwide have spiked by insane amounts. Zillow is now predicting a continued massive price spike for this year as well, more than 17% for the entire year of 2022, with a peak of year-over-year growth at 21.6% expected in May. There's a lot of reasons for that. We've covered some of them before, including the malign influence of private equity. But the increased affluence of the PMC during the pandemic is certainly a part of that story. And as they untether from offices, keep their coastal city salaries, but move to cheaper parts of the country, they only stand to benefit more. Not to mention the gulf created between those who already own homes and benefit from the massive pricing spikes, and those who are watching the dream of home ownership get further and further out of their grasp every single year, and are instead stuck on the treadmill of renting from landlords, which are increasingly, again, rapacious private equity giants. And honestly, these changes I'm sketching out, they're just the tip of the iceberg. How will already neglected public transit atrophy once professionals are no longer taking trains and buses to work? How will local culture be quashed by new residents with no loyalty to the local small business community and lots of comfort with Starbucks and Amazon and companies like that? How will local school systems suffer when new residents have no attachment to the local public schools and instead prefer pricey private options? How will downtowns be transformed when office lunch spots and dry cleaners and the like are all abandoned? It's impossible to wrap your head around what that could all look like going forward. Now, it would be wonderful if a rising tide for the PMC would actually lift all boats, but that has just literally never happened. I genuinely do not think it's an overstatement to say that the only concrete and durable gains made for the working class throughout history here have been through the labor movement. The only way that the broader working class will benefit from the gains of the upper middle class are through militant collective struggle. And that's why we focus so much on the fights at Starbucks and John Deere and Amazon and so many more. They're so incredibly essential. Walmart is not going to be willing to hand out a flexible 4-day work week to the folks who are manning the registers and stocking the shelves unless they are forced to do so. Without organized labor power, the gains at the top will only further contribute to a coming apart of America. On one side will be a fully justified burning resentment. And on the other side will be increasing contempt for the supposedly backwards lifestyles of those who are rooted in one place, working long hours and struggling to make it. After all, how else can you in the lucky class justify this massive gulf in basic humanity without internalizing that you are somehow more worthy, somehow more deserving? Those underlying dynamics already define so much of our politics of virtue signaling, censorship, and populist rage. But as bad as things seem, we have already caught glimpses of how they could get so much worse. And Sagar, even though, look, this was written before the invasion and obviously is a little different
still
from the
actually
show,
matters.
It's
still
actually
matters a
kind of
lot.
relevant as I think
Very
about
relevant.
it. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut. Our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions. All that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.